You're tuning into a special episode of Drive with NAR Mike Takeover here in Boston, Massachusetts at NAR Next. I'm James Dwiggins, also known as Dwiggy Dwiggins from Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered, with my co-host and partner in crime, Mr. Keith Robinson, a.k.a. Crazy Uncle Keith.
Yes, sir.
So we're at the biggest real estate conference in the country right now. And we had Jessica Lautz, the Deputy Chief Economist and VP of Research at NAR.
Yes.
Talk to us about the great conversation we had.
You know I love it when we have a fellow data nerd on a podcast. She unpacked for us the home buyer, home seller report, and they've been doing it since the early 80s.
I know, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. It just packed with information. And candidly, if you're a real estate agent and you're listening to this right now, she is going to give you the blueprint on what buyers and sellers are thinking about, worried about, and what they need. It's all in the report, and it's direct from the people that we help and represent. 5,500 of them was part of the sample size. It's amazing. It was great information. You're going to dig it. Put it in your ears, kids.
Jessica, welcome to the show. We are very excited to have you here today. Mr. Keith Robinson here loves data.
I do.
A lot.
I'm a nerd.
Love it. Love nerds.
I mean, this is gonna be a lot more him asking questions because of that. But you guys just came out with a new profile of home buyers and sellers report. You've been doing this for how long now? I mean, this goes way back, right?
Yeah, it's since 1981, 43 years of data. Yeah, to understand who buyers and sellers are.
It's no idea.
It is such a good report. Like, I don't want to derail us before we get started, but it is so powerful and impactful, and it is like a blueprint for how you can tweak and adjust your business.
Yeah,
to
totally.
serve your clients better, right?
Yeah, to understand who's growing, to understand who's being left out of the market. Yeah, to try and reach people. Yeah.
How much time does it take you guys to put that together? Like, give us, before we dive into some of the questions, tell us like the work that's involved.
And how big's the team? Like, give us some context.
Yeah, so there's about 4 of us who are working on the report on an annual basis. So we have to put together the survey. The questions change. Like, obviously, we added since 1981. We used the internet and then took that off because it turns out everyone. Yes. So the questions always have to tweak. They always have to change. And then we really work at a pretty tight time frame because we're actually sending the survey out via mail. And we're trying to capture everyone who purchased since June 30th. So it gets mailed out. Then we collect all the surveys, which, given the hurricanes, big issue there this year, lower mail rate.
What's the sample size of the?
We get about 5,500 surveys back.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So
big.
Yeah, we feel very confident in the data. Margin of error is plus or minus 1%. So we're feeling very good about that.
That's awesome. Has that number been the same consistently over time, or has it just been
It ebbs and flows. I mean, during COVID, everyone was really bored, so we got lots of surveys. Yeah.
What else were you going to do, right?
Exactly.
That's funny. All right, well, let's dive in. Give us some details.
Yeah. So, I mean, this year is pretty bleak. Like, I'm a happy person, but the data is pretty bleak. It shows a really big dichotomy in the market. We have a big separation where we have the lowest level of first-time home buyers we've actually ever seen in 43 years and the highest share of all cash buyers. So you see a very, very, very stark divide.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's the tale of two cities.
Yeah, it absolutely is. The haves and the have-nots in the housing market. Those who can afford to make these housing trades with an all-cash purchase, and really that's the repeat retiree buyer.
Right.
And then the first-time home buyer who's really struggling. And if they can get in, they're doing so with inheritance. They're doing so with mom and dad's money. They're wealthier buyers. They're higher incomes. So it's a different type of first-time home buyer.
Interesting.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say, what are you seeing some statistics? Like, so give us some changes from what you saw from last year to this year.
Yeah.
With that new sample. Okay.
So historically, if we look before the Great Recession, 40% of primary residence buyers were first-time home buyers. This year, 24%.
Oh, that's staggering.
Yeah. So it's always, in the last few years, it's been in the low 30s, but seeing it drop off that dramatically. For all cash, we're looking at 31% of repeat buyers paying all cash. You know what's striking? 9% of first-time buyers, 1 in 10 first-time buyers, bought their house with cash.
Were they robbing banks?
No, they were using mom and dad's money.
Oh.
Yeah, in fact, 7% of first-time home buyers used inheritance.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think we're looking at a very interesting demographic who's able to enter the housing market right now.
But a 50% reduction, that's wow. That's a huge statistic.
Yeah, it is. I think what's really striking too, when we look at first-time home buyers this year, their age is the highest we've ever seen. They're 38 years old. They're nearly 40 when they go to purchase their first home.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as far as like the things that home buyers are looking for? Has there been a change in like the priority of specific services that they're looking for, either their agent or the marketing behind a property? Like what is some of the new stuff that you're noticing?
Yeah. Okay. So the big one that we're seeing this year is that when they look at neighborhood choice, friends and family, where's my family? Essentially, we're looking at retirees who are chasing the grandbaby. So not necessarily a huge surprise in the data, but that's a top neighborhood choice.
Yeah.
Being close to work used to be more than half of buyers were saying that's important. Now it's like a third. So yeah,
the remote work experience?
I think that's part of it too. So if all of Amazon and Washington Post all say 5 days a week, I feel like that number could change.
What about what they're looking for in an agent, or what's important to them from their agent?
Yeah. So 9 in 10 buyers and 9 in 10 sellers are actually using agents in their transaction. FSBO's for sale by owner, that's an all-time low that we've ever seen this year. That's 6%.
Oh, it was 7 last year, so it's gone down further.
Yeah, it's gone down further. So it's the bread and butter. It's honesty. It's trustworthy. It's reputation. It's making sure that buyer's agent can find that home for you, but then also help with negotiation.
You know, I talk about this often when I'm doing, presentations around the country. I think there's been a lot of talk about the future of buyer agency, and Keith and I are like, no, what we do is incredibly important. And what's interesting about that, if you go back, and I'm going to get this number, I hope I'm right, I'm talking to the person that did the report, but I remember use of an agent. So 9 out of 10 was the number. And I think historically, I went back in time in 2001, the use of an agent was 69% of the time. Now it's like almost 90%.
It's 88%.
88, but just almost 90%.
Yeah.
So think about this. I like talking about this. Zillow wasn't around until 2005.
Yep.
So we had in 2001, the use of a buyer's agent was much lower. You have all this technology, all this information, all of this stuff that's supposed to disintermediate everybody. And then the use of a realtor continues to go up.
Technology is a tool. You're going to use it to go to your favorite coffee shop. I mean, we were just talking as we were doing sound checks about bad oatmeal, right? So I mean, I could have checked to see the coffee shop and how bad it was before I went in this morning, but I didn't. So.
Well, and access to information, the human brain, when given too much information, seeks counsel, right?
Absolutely.
And so the walls to information coming down actually help elucidate how hard the process is. And I think that stimulates a lot of people going, man, I need help. This is confusing.
Well, it's like the analogy of, I do this. If I'm sick, I go to WebMD. And then I realized I have like cancer and like all of these things that I'm like, I'm dying.
Yeah.
And then I call my doctor and like, you have a cold, relax.
Yeah.
So,
please more.
Rest.
Yeah.
Let's flip to the seller side of things. We touched on the buyers. What sort of jumped out at you as you were putting the report together on the seller side?
Yeah. So one is obviously the amount of money that they're just accumulating. It's tremendous, right? So it's pretty crazy. They're living in their homes for 10 years. So we're not seeing huge jumps in that, though historically it was 6 to 7, but it's been 10 years essentially outside of the Great Recession.
So since the Great Recession,
it's been about 10 years.
It pushed everything out.
Yeah.
At 10 years.
And I think that with lower interest rates, the lock-in effect that's happened, we're going to see that extend. The other thing that we are seeing too is the seller's age, all-time high as well. Number one reason to move, be close to friends and family.
Got it. Yeah. So boomers are starting to transact.
Yes.
They're trading down, moving closer to.
That's the key. They're not trading down in square footage as much. If they can find a more affordable property, they'll absolutely do that. But as far as square footage goes, they like their things, I think. And perhaps they want room to host holiday meals.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you seen any migration patterns from state to state? Is there some numbers there on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this report doesn't capture that as much, but we do know that migration is huge, right? So we know that the mountain states still popular in the last year. We know that the Sun Belt, if you have favorable taxes, if you have good weather, more affordability, all of those things are going to attract people.
Interesting. And then as far as what a seller is looking for in their real estate professional.
It's the same bread and butter. Have you used that person before? You're going to want to use them again if you're moving close. If you're not, obviously you're going to have to find someone new. And then you're looking for, again, good reputation, honesty, trustworthy. This is the biggest financial transaction of one's life. No one wants to leave money on the table. So making sure that they really are the best person to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Are they interviewing 1, 2 agents? How many agents are being interviewed on?
One.
Really?
The vast majority?
Yeah, the vast majority. We're looking at about 3/4 of folks are just interviewing one person. That's the buyer side and the seller
So
side.
75%.
I think it's a little less than that.
Okay.
Not sure the precise number.
Okay, that's all right. Yeah. So reach out to your sphere of influence and stay in touch.
And they're only reaching out once. So like once they get that call back, once they get the email back, or however they're reaching out to you, that's it.
Interesting.
What are some of the things that the sellers are looking for from a marketing perspective? Are they identifying like, I want these things? I got to go rant for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Drives me nuts when agents don't do floor plans.
I knew floor plans was coming.
Well, because it's literally, I think it's the number 2 or most requested thing by buyers, if I'm correct with the
Detailed information and then floor plans.
and then so it's 1 or 2, and yet like less than 30% of listings have a floor plan. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
like we need to be paying attention to these reports so we can do what the seller wants.
Yeah, preach. No, this is a good way to use the data, is to actually see how homes are marketed, how that's actually being used, and then how buyers are actually finding that home and what they're finding useful on these websites. Then you can actually put that into your own practice. So I think it's a pretty good way.
Let's peel back that onion a little more, because it's 100 and how many pages again?
141 pages.
Yeah, of brilliance, right? But so if I'm a real estate professional, right, I'm an agent, and I get a 140-page report.
Yeah.
So let's pretend you're an agent now.
Yes.
And you got the report.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe help guide us. What places would you go first? Of course, you want them to read it all. It's
Right.
packed with good information. But give us, if I was a Cliff's Notes reader that told you that I'm old, well, what sections would you recommend that an agent go to first to sort of start to process this information?
Okay, so one, I would probably go to our blog first, because we have good blogs about it that break down the top 10 of what you can actually find in the report, the biggest changes that we saw, why that matters. 2, I would go to Realtor Magazine, because I also put out some articles on this too, so plug there. But the next thing that I would do is I would say, okay, who am I trying to attract? Am I looking for buyers? Am I looking for sellers? We have different chapters for each. And then am I looking for, how do I build up my clientele? Then you're probably going to want to go to either the buyer agent chapter or the seller agent chapter, and just kind of work with what you're really interested in. Find one stat. If you're like, oh, I'm really interested in how fur babies, pets are really driving transactions, or single women. We got plenty of data on both of those.
How are pets driving transactions? People are buying pets' houses?
Oh, no, 16% of buyers are factoring in their pet into their neighborhood choice.
Yeah, you stop, Keith. Your dog controls your life too. I don't want to hear anything about that.
It's a billion-dollar business in the U.S. Of course it is.
That's wow. Yeah, I guess it is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you think one of the strategies that people should deploy is taking this report, analyzing their own business, and then going, where are the holes that I can do better to provide more service, et cetera, and then like remap what you're missing in that and kind of plug it with floor plans. Like, we need to do this. This is what we need to do for buyers.
You like floor plans.
Well,
Every podcast.
It's just more about, like, to me, doing that analysis of what's missing in your marketing.
What do you want to learn more of?
Yeah.
How is that going to help you? What is your end goal? I think that's really important.
Yeah.
If you're looking for your niche, then you'll find it in there too.
And I think too, like, this is a baseball analogy, which I never played baseball, so I don't know why I'm doing this, but like, if you know what pitches are coming, it's a lot easier to hit, right? So literally in the report, it tells you what is most important to buyers and sellers.
Yes, absolutely. And what are growing segments too, of buyers and sellers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you know what's most important to them, look at your business, see where the gaps are. And, communication has historically been a really important one. Is that true this year?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, I have to say that communication, very important, but it's going to differ for everyone too, right? So keeping that conversation open. While we can have stats on nationwide of what the buyers want, that's going to be different for each individual client.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Great.
And where can they get this report?
So NAR.Realtor and our Economist Outlook blog. You can grab the blogs there too.
And you guys have other reports that you do as well. There's the membership report. And what are some of the other ones that they can go take a look at as well?
Sustainability, safety, looking at career choices if they're trying to recruit folks into their firm to see how their firm measures up against others in the real estate industry. We have tons of reports out there. They're all for you as a member benefit.
That's awesome. Jessica, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. Keith and I use this report every year, by the way, as part of our strat plan. And so we love to hear the content, the work. And I did not know since the 80s you've been doing that. That is...
Not me personally.
I know that, but my point was I didn't know it was that far back. Is that historical, by the way, before we close out? Because the historical data there for them to go back in time?
Trend lines, tons of them in the report.
Love it.
Thank you for being a fellow data nerd and for sharing your gift with everyone at NAR. It's really, really valuable. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us at the NAR Next conference in Boston, Massachusetts. We have been doing the Drive with NAR podcast in association with Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. We appreciate all of that. Make sure you subscribe to both podcasts. We got a lot of content coming.